welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another video. Today I have a different type of video. This video is about a procedure that I had to get done when I was pregnant with my second child. So the reason why I decided to make this video is because when I found out I was having that procedure, there was not a lot of information about it. I looked up videos. Yes, I saw a couple of videos, but it didn't really explain. They didn't really explain like the whole procedure, the steps, or if any, I don't know, just any medication, the pain, or anything. So I will go in depth in another video about all the things that happened to me within my second pregnancy, because a lot of things happened. But anyways, what is a cerclage? So a cerclage is a cervical stitch. It's a treatment for cervical weakness. This causes the cervix to shorten or open, causing a miscarriage or preterm birth. So I do have my little notes here just in case I forget anything. I did want to go into detail with it, so I did notes. Anyways, so as you can tell, a cerclage is a big thing when you're pregnant. Why? Because miscarrying your baby, that's one of the worst things that can possibly happen. Or even preterm birth, when you're like so early. And at the time that they discovered that I needed a cerclage, I was 20 weeks early, you guys. So the chances of the baby to survive was not a whole lot. So anyways, how they found out that I needed a cerclage was actually through the anatomy ultrasound. So I went in and I had the ultrasound scheduled to do like all the anatomy stuff, look at the baby's organs and all that stuff and see if she was okay. So the ultrasound technician was doing my ultrasound, and then all of a sudden I just see like that she gets like really yellow, and she's like, wait one moment, I'm gonna go get your OBG. So at this point, I'm just like, we were just like talking about like her little kidneys, the bladder, and all this stuff, and now you have to go get my OBG. So I'm really confused at this point. I'm just like, okay, like maybe she's new or she doesn't understand, I don't know. So then my OBG comes and she's like, Karla, we're gonna do a vaginal ultrasound real quick. So then I looked at her and I was like, why? Like, we're past that, we're at almost like 20. Well, yeah, we were at 20 weeks. So I was just like, okay, let's do it then. So she does it, and I kid you not, as soon as she starts doing the vaginal ultrasound, she like takes it out and she's like, I need you to drive to the hospital. And I was just like, why? Like, what's going on? She was like, you're dilated. She was like, we need to get this fixed like right away. So I was just freaking out because I was just like this, how, like what, like what's going on? So at this point, I didn't even know if my daughter was actually a girl, if she was okay, if she had, the 5 fingers, 5 toes, like any of that stuff. At this point, I knew that her kidneys looked great, her bladder looked great, but everything else I had no idea if it was okay. So I get dressed, I drive to my hospital. So then when we get to the hospital, they tell me that I'm going to the high risk doctors. So then I go to the high risk pregnancy doctors, and when I get there, obviously I had to do like some paperwork, and then he like had to do another vaginal ultrasound. At this point, I'm just like seriously, like come on, like this is a little too much. So then when I get there, yes baby, I love you. Okay, do you want your applesauce?
Yeah.
Okay. Here you go, my love. So at this point, he does another vaginal ultrasound, and he tells me, he's like, you're exactly 2 centimeters dilated. So he was like, you do understand that there's a lot of risk, like you're, oh no, okay, so I was 2 centimeters dilated, and the sac where the baby is in, it was already exposed. Like it was just like exposed, they could literally see it. So he tells me, he's like, you know, this could go 2 different ways. Like if you have bacteria in there, we can pretty much get the bacteria out of your system, but we can't get it out of the baby. So this was hard to process, just because I was already like thinking that everything was fine. I was excited for the ultrasound, and so everything was going fine, and then they tell me I have to go to the high-risk doctor. Now I'm there. Now he's telling me that, you know, if I did have an infection out there, because I was already, the baby was pretty much exposed to all this bacteria, that anything could happen at this point. So when he looks at me, he tells me, he's like, you know, the cerclage is the next thing that we would have to do. He was like, but in order to do that, I first have to make sure that the baby doesn't have any bacteria, because if the baby does, then it's pretty much best at this point to do a chemical abortion, because the baby wouldn't survive. So once we he did a amino synthesis, which pretty much means that he grabbed a big needle and put it in my belly to get some fluid from where the baby was at, and then send that over to the lab to see if there was any bacteria. So at this point, they already took some fluid out, and so they take the fluid out with that big needle. It was painful, I'm not gonna lie.
Banana?
Yes, banana. Sorry, I have my little one. So once they do it, I'm already really emotional, because one, it hurts really bad to get the fluid out, and the other thing was they made me sign a paper saying that sometimes the needle ruptures the back. So either way, I was there to lose. At least that's what I felt. I felt like if I'm exposed to the bacteria and I leave it like this, I have chances to lose my baby. If I do go ahead with the procedure, they still have to do that needle through my stomach. I still have chances to lose my baby. So I didn't know what to think. Like, I was just really overwhelmed. I remember I started crying. My husband was just like holding my hand, and my son was just like looking at me. I was trying to keep content just because I knew he was there, but it was hard. It was just really draining. So once he gets the fluid out, he tells me, he was like, I will not have the results in like right away. It's gonna take about 2 to 3 hours, but I need you to drive over to the hospital where the procedure would be done. So the hospital that I went to see the high-risk pregnancy, that's the hospital that I delivered at. So that was my scheduled hospital, but they sent me to a specialized hospital that is specialized in cerclages. That was about 30 minutes away from where I was at. So I ended up leaving my hospital with no answers to whether I had bacteria or not, to go to the other hospital. In the process, they were sending my, the fluid in to get it checked to the lab, and then they would call the other hospital and let them know if I was on the clear to go ahead and start the procedure, or if they had to do something else. Anyway, so I dropped off my son. I go on to this other hospital, and when I get there, they had my room already ready for me, and it was just like your regular hospital room. So I was there. They had me hooked up to some IV, and they drew some blood. So that was that, and then I was just waiting, and they were telling me, they were asking me like just how I was feeling, if I had any sharp pains, and obviously I didn't have anything. But at this point, yes, baby. Here. So then at this point, the doctor that was gonna do my cerclage, she comes in and she tells me, I already have your results, and guess what? You have no bacteria. Like, your baby has no bacteria. Baby was not yet exposed, so we're good. Like, I mean, it was exposed, but not exposed to like the bad bacteria that could contaminate like all the fluid that the baby was in. So at this point, like, I felt like a pressure, like just relieved, but I still was so stressed because I didn't know what the cerclage entitled. So like I said, I thought I was gonna be in and out that day, and little to my knowledge, it didn't happen that way. So she was all like, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do the cerclage. She was all like, if you allow us to, she was like, honestly, this is the best thing for your pregnancy and for you and the baby. She was all like, so I just want to know, like, do you give us permission to go ahead and do the cerclage? So at this point, I'm like, what are the chances? So then at this point, the nurse comes in and she tries to explain to me, like, you're gonna go through a process. And I was just like, okay, you know, like, that's fine. Like, my OBG had just told me, she was like, yeah, they're just gonna go in and just kind of tie your cervix up, and that's it. So I was under the impression, like, you know, that's it. Like, they're just gonna do that. So yeah, that was it. That's all they do. But I didn't know that I had to go under regional anesthesia to get the cerclage done. So when they told me this, I started crying because she said, you know, sometimes when we are tying the cervix, chances are that, you know, the baby does come out. Like, it's just anything, because, you know, they're sewing it up. So like, they're pretty much using a needle and tying your cervix up, you know, with fine stitch. So at this point, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how many times am I gonna be exposed to losing my baby? Like, I was just freaking out. I was also angry. I just didn't know what to expect. So I remember having an awesome nurse. Like, she was amazing. Like, she got me like just amped me up, like, seriously, from feeling so down. She like pushed me to feeling great about the procedure, feeling confident. And she kept telling me, she was like, you know what, get your last smooch in. So she told my husband, go give her a last kiss, everything will be fine, she's gonna be out in an hour or two. She was like, and we'll call you once it's done, and you can, like, you know, be with her when she wakes up and all this stuff, right? So I was just like, oh my gosh, like, this is happening, like, right now, like, in a matter of minutes. Like, I have to go back in the operating room, and I've never had like any kind of surgery before, like, at all. So that was like nerve-wracking, because that was my first surgery. So at this point, they take me back to the surgery room, and they do the epidural, so the regional anesthesia, and then I am listening to my favorite music, because they also wanted to relax me, because I was really like stressed. I was crying. I didn't know, you know, what the procedure was like, and also, like, I was just so scared because the room was like a bright white room with a lot of lights. It's so cold in there, beyond cold, and you're like on a table, like not even a bed, on a table, and they had me, my legs were tied up. Okay, so that was really weird. It was awkward. My legs were just tied up, and they're just messing with me down there. All I could feel was just like this, like, happening to my body, but I didn't know what exactly was happening. She was explaining it as she was going, but, like, to be honest, my head was just like on a blank, and I just kept thinking, like, please let my baby be okay. He moved on, and she had, you know, monitoring the baby's heartbeat and then monitoring for contractions, because sometimes when you do go through a cerclage, you do tend to get contractions, and the baby wants to make its debut, which I'm so thankful she didn't, and she actually waited. So anyway, so there's two different types of cerclage. There's a McDonald's cerclage, which is typically like the most normal or common, I should say, and it's like on your lower, it's lower on the cervix. And there's a TBCIC, that's higher on your cervix. So at this point, when she puts the cerclage in, which I got the McDonald one done, she tells me, okay, that's it, you're ready. And the baby was still, her heartbeat was fine, she was doing her movements, so everything was good. So then they take me to the recovery room, and that's where they bring my husband. So I feel like the procedure lasted like an hour and a half, and then my husband was called once I was in the recovery room. So that's where I waited for the anesthesia to kind of wear off. So yeah, so then that took about an hour down at the recovery room, and then they brought me up to my regular room after that. So once I was in my regular room, I didn't even know I had a Foley catheter down there, but I needed it because I was not allowed to get out of bed for that night. So I had to keep my Foley catheter in that whole night, which was uncomfortable. It was just weird to have that. I mean, I had the pressure of the baby, which thank God she wasn't that big at the time, but still, it was just, you know, the pressure of being pregnant, my organs being moved everywhere, the stitch being placed in my cervix, so that was even, you know, uncomfortable. I didn't know if to sit, like, to sit or to be on my side or to be on my back. Like, it was just uncomfortable all around. The procedure is done transvaginal, so there's no like cutting on your stomach or anything to put the stitch in. They just do it, you know, with the spectrum, like I said, and then tie that up, and that's it. I know it sounds super easy how I'm explaining it. The whole process itself, it's not as easy as it seems. Just because, like I said, you do have to go through the anesthesia, which is no fun. I mean, there's a lot of side things to that. I have my discharge paper here, and I want to go through my limitations. I was there for a total of 5 days. So the first day, no getting up. Like I said, I had the Foley catheter to do my business with, and I was on a just liquid diet. Then the second day, I was allowed to go to the bathroom just because my legs are back to normal. They were no longer tingling. I could actually feel them. I could feel my movements and all that fun stuff. So anyways, we got the Foley catheter out, and I was able to just, you know, go potty, but I was still on bed rest. So even to take a shower, I had to call the nurse, and somebody had to be there present when I was taking the shower. By this time, I was also taking medications. So the medications that they gave me with the Cerclage was Celebrex, so they gave me Celebrex, Cephalxin, and Flagyl, and obviously like my prenatal. And for pain, I was allowed to do anything from Tylenol, or I believe the strong one that I was able to get was, oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart right now. Pain is real, you guys. I was feeling a lot of pain. I just felt like my organs were pulled. I mean, I'm pregnant, and then I had to go through the surgery. It was just so uncomfortable. My back was hurting because obviously I was not allowed to do a lot of movement. I just had gotten that epidural on my back, and also I wasn't able to just be walking around. I had to be laying in bed. So I was at the hospital for 5 days, like I mentioned, taking those medications there, and then leaving. When I got discharged, I still had to take them, and I was still on bed rest. I could not be up, like it was bed rest strictly. Some signs that I also had to watch out for, which was vaginal bleeding, leaking fluid, fever, contractions, abdominal pain, or anything like that. So if I did have it, I had to go back to the hospital immediately, which I did not have any of it. I only had a little bit of leaking fluid, but it was normal. It was just that my body was still adapting to the cerclage. So that leaking fluid was actually my pee. It wasn't anything else. I just had no control. So when I would go potty, my body, I don't know, it's just really weird. So you go potty, you think you're done, but then when you walk away, you're like still dripping. It's just so weird, okay? So I thought that I was like leaking some fluid, so I called my nurse and I'm like, I don't know what this is. So I did have to go in and they checked it out and it was nothing. It was just pee. But she did explain then. She was just like, oh yeah, sometimes it's not fully awake down there, so that's why it's probably like, oh, what is this thing tied around? So it doesn't really understand what it's doing yet. I could not go up the stairs or climb up. My house does have stairs in order to go to my bedroom, so I had to sleep downstairs. Obviously nothing in the vagina, no intercourse, no tampons, no nothing. Like you couldn't even go into like take a bath or just nothing. No pool, nothing. Exercises, no exercising through the whole pregnancy. No lifting more than 10 pounds. So this was already hard because my son, like I said, I have a toddler and obviously he wasn't less than 10 pounds. So that was really difficult to do because that was through my whole pregnancy that I had to not do that, and then obviously after I couldn't. So that took a toll on me for sure. So anyways, so yeah, that's pretty much concludes everything. And then the other thing is, when do they take your cerclage out? So the cerclage is usually removed when you reach your 36 or 37 weeks. And then after that, you usually deliver the baby. Some women deliver right away after the cerclage is removed, or some women deliver within 2 weeks after that. I was lucky enough to deliver at 40 weeks exact. So yeah, I delivered then. Nothing crazy with that. With the removal, I was not put under anesthesia. I had the option to take medication or do without. So how they take it out is they do a spectrum in your part. And take in mind, it is a little sore. I mean, the baby is grown at this time. There's a lot of pressure down there. And then the spectrum's opening up. You have the cerclage, which is kind of uncomfortable when the baby is pushing and tugging down on it. They just cut it. So they just snip, snap down there. They remove it and that's it. It's out. It's literally, you're in and out within like 10 minutes if it goes well. I know there's some women that have a harder time because there's like skin like just on there, like braided with the wire or whatever the case is, or just like skin growing on there. So I can't imagine what that's like. I had a little bit of skin on there, but it wasn't that painful. I could tolerate that pain. It was just kind of like somebody kind of just like scratching. I know this is a little too visual and I apologize, but that's what I felt. I felt like a pinch. I did have my husband to hold his hand just in case I couldn't tolerate the pain. But everything went well. So that was the removal part. Like I said, you do have the option to either get like medication or numbing cream, or some doctors do it without. I did have the option to do either medication or without. I did do the medication part just because, like I said, I was really sore even with just like the spectrum going in there. So yeah, I was like, I just want light medication. It wasn't like medication where you're like numb and not feeling anything. No, it was just medication to kind of relax you. So it kind of relaxed your muscles, not really. It didn't do it much, like a lot for the pain part. It was just more to relax and to loosen up because I was tense. My legs were like this, I kid you not. But Anyways, so that is it, you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this information in this video, because I know that when I was going through it, I did want a video just dedicated on the Cerclage itself. So if you guys liked it, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, comment down below if you've ever had a Cerclage, what your experience was, or if you are having a Cerclage done scheduled, or you know, just how your experience was. I am really interested in knowing. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.